you approach it with the, depending on the stage of the project or what the scale of it is or what's actually being done, do you demand as kind of your condition of taking on the job that we're going to uncover what was done so we can verify ourselves that it's going to work?
Yeah.
The countdown has commenced. Andy, we are on the air. How you doing, man?
We're in it.
We're in it.
Good.
We're back in the studio.
It's about time.
It's been almost 1 month since we recorded.
I know.
But there's almost no hiccup in the delivery of episodes out there. You ran a rerun for us. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep. No problem. I felt like the old Patrick episode was a good fitting episode.
It was. Wasn't it cool to meet Patrick and Lucas in Australia? That was awesome.
It was.
It was a fun dinner. I don't think I stopped smiling for like 2 hours.
Right.
Smiling, laughing, trying to understand what the heck it was that came out of Patrick's mouth, like every 13th word. What?
Yeah. There was a couple times where I had to take a like a hot, just a pause and be like, what did he just say?
Well, if he's watching this or listening, and I hope he is, thank you to both of Luke and Patrick in Adelaide, Australia, for going to dinner with us and having fun and listening to the podcast. If you thought that I was like a little out of it while we were talking, I mean, I was tired for sure, but most of all, I found myself in Australia like wondering what people were saying while they kept talking, and my brain couldn't keep up. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It feels like they talk fast enough, and there would be just certain little bits of their vernacular, let's call it.
Yeah.
That they would I would be like wondering what it was that they just said.
Yeah.
Like Dunny. Yeah. I knew that one, but there was something else Patrick was telling us about, and it was, he was saying something about putting something on your burger, like a beetroot.
Yeah.
Beetroot. Yeah. I don't know. But the whole time I'm going, what's he saying? So then he would lose me for a second, and I would just be like, huh? Yeah. I shouldn't admit that, but that's what I did. Anyway, It was a lot of fun. I had fun there, and that was cool.
It'd only be embarrassing if you were the only one doing
it. Yeah, I know I wasn't the only one. Luke's daughter was a riot.
Oh, she was a hoot.
His wife was super nice too, and of course Patrick's girlfriend. So everybody, welcome to the Make Trades Great Again podcast. Andy and I are talking about a recent trip we took to Australia. It was a lot of fun. Unofficial business, just for fun. Andy, I got a message over on Instagram. Thank you to Will Rutherford Construction. Follow him. He's a general contractor, remodeling contractor in Oakland, California. If you want to see him, nice guy. He's messaged the show before. We've talked to him. I looked at messages in the past. It was 2021, so it's been a little bit. Will, where you been, buddy? No, just kidding. I'm just going to read this message. We'll get right into it. You and I briefly talked about this.
Right.
But I think it's interesting, and it's not something we really talk about, but it's related to plumbing and construction. So, how do you handle taking over another plumber's project? He writes in, he's saying that I'm a GC and had a new plumbing sub walk halfway through rough-ins because of manpower issues and left me in a pinch. And now I'm having trouble finding a plumber to take on the rest of the job. Have you ever taken over jobs from other plumbers, and have you walked from a job? Thanks. So he's going to hang up and listen. It's first time caller, long time listener. Andy, have you ever taken on a job that another plumbing company started?
Yeah, definitely have done that. I wouldn't say, it's not certainly not something that I'm like, oh, hey, I'm going to go look for these kinds of jobs.
No.
It's
not something that happens often, right?
No, that's what I'm just trying to think of when the last one was. It's been years since I've done that. And I guess it's one of those things where you're kind of like, geez, I wish I knew what they did here, or, how did they do this? Because it might change, what's on the top out, if let's say the underground's done and
you get there and there's just concrete and framed walls.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah. And I think that was the last one that I did. It was like, oh, look, there's all these 2-inch vents sticking out of the floor.
Yeah.
Or 2-inch pipes, maybe not vents.
We
2-inch
think they're
pipes sticking
vents,
out of the floor.
Or there is a vent and a drain next to each other.
Yeah.
Because there's like a bathroom on one side and a laundry on the other, and you're like, which one's the standpipe?
Right.
Probably won't matter, right?
It'll probably work.
Yeah. They all kind of go to the same spot eventually.
Yeah.
No, I've done the same thing. Exactly that, where you stand there and you're looking at just concrete and now walls on top of that concrete, and you go, I don't know. I mean, it's obvious what like a 3-inch pipe coming out of the floor is, right? Like that's a stack. And it'll probably make sense because of where it's at or something like that. But I think what you bring up right away is an answer to a question I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Like, what goes through your head? What's the first thing you think about when presented the opportunity to do something like this? Like a general contractor comes to you, maybe you know this person, maybe you don't. That really doesn't matter, I guess, or maybe it does kind of matter. Maybe that is part of this whole equation too, if you stop and think about it. Like, are you more likely to say yes or immediately say no, depending on who it is? But like, what's the first thing you think of when somebody asks you this? And I think you already kind of answered it, but go answer that question if you want.
Yeah. One of the big ones is, why did the first guy leave?
Yeah, no, that's a great, thing to bring up. Honestly, that's a great point.
I'm generally, just like we've talked in the past, I'm not looking for any kind of drama on the job site. I don't have time for it. No. I don't have the energy for it to be like, oh, hey, let's argue about this, or let's worry about where the paycheck's going to come from.
Yeah. Or are other subs pissed off, or does this general contractor just not get along with people?
Yeah.
There's probably reasons why this happened.
Yep.
Will says in his message, it was because of manpower issues. We can only assume that maybe the plumber had too much going on, took on this job. It was bad timing.
I can say that I have walked away from jobs that were where I was asked to maybe do proposals in December. And then the job, we talked about it all through the spring and all through the summer. And then finally it's, fall, and hey, we're going to start on this big plumbing remodel. And I've been like, nah, I mean, I can't take it on right now.
Yeah.
And that sucks because, if somebody's not clear with when the schedule is going to happen, I mean, I could tell you for the last 5 years, we haven't taken much for plumbing work in the fall. No, usually end of July, we're closing the door on bidding plumbing work. Because it's not my focus.
Right. So anybody that doesn't know, you probably do if you listen to the show already, but Andy and myself, what you're saying is you're switching over to heating season. Like we do a lot of boiler work, service on heating systems. It's not the time to take on a plumbing job necessarily.
Yeah.
Because of how, like in my case, it's just me, but you got to focus your limited resources. You got 3 guys out in the field.
Yeah.
And you have more than enough work to keep them busy on the heating side. So that's why.
Yep. And that's the thing, so fall, I mean, and I don't know if that's where this guy's at. It sounds like, with what Will said is it was a manpower issue. I don't know the scope of the work, if it was let's say it was an apartment complex or something like that. I mean, that's not a one-man shop type operation. So if let's say the guy had a helper or had another journeyman that was working for him and the guy got hurt. Yeah. I mean, those kinds of things happen and that sucks. Or maybe the guy quit, got fired. Who knows?
Maybe the guy just wasn't prepared to do the job or qualified, or maybe bid it wrong and then didn't know how to handle it and took off. Yep. There's a lot of reasons why people might leave. I can think of it, at least just hypothetically in my head.
Yeah. But, I guess, to get back to, kind of Will's question, well, how do I get somebody to look at this again? Right. Like I'm in a pickle because, I told my customer we were going to do this, and now we're not doing it because I can't get a plumber in there. that side of it, gets really tough to deal with. Because it's every bit of the skilled trades industry, the construction industry is shorthanded. Like you're not going to go call around and find somebody that's like, oh, we are fully staffed and ready for you. I mean, yeah, maybe in their marketing campaign, but in the reality of it is that pretty much everybody is like, yeah, I could probably put on another guy, might be kind of nice. We could do a little more work if I had more manpower.
Yeah, probably. I mean, some markets are pretty slow right now. I don't know
Yeah.
I mean, I know what you're saying. I think that technically there could be some places right now that people are looking for work, but in general, yeah, you're dead on. Like,
Right.
Unless it's slow, like specifically, in that market, nobody's got like an abundance of time, laying there on the shelf waiting to be gobbled up, basically, right?
Right.
Yeah, I get, one of the first things that I thought of was like when you just think of plumbing in general, you think of like waste and vent. And in Minnesota, even with remodel, there's going to be a certain amount of testing to prove that what you've done doesn't leak, is reliable, is done, visual inspections, and then like proof of performance based, not performance.
Sure.
What am I looking for? You can do like an air test or a manometer test or something that says like, hey, install this whole bunch of piping. Maybe you're just doing a single remodel on a bathroom.
Yeah.
But like all that stuff in one way or another, and my jobs is going to have to be tested and proven that it's worthy. Right.
Yeah.
And so that might just mean that you're going to like eliminate and isolate the old system, but anything new you put in is going to be, you're going to show them that it's done right. Yeah. I'm not talking about just like moving a lav arm a few feet or something like that, but like if you're re-plumbing a bathroom here in Minnesota, and I imagine it's the same in Montana, you have to prove one way or another, satisfy the inspector that doesn't leak. So like, I bring all that up and I go over and like not into detail on it, but like that's the first thing I think of, other than like your point is great. Like, why did this person leave? But then I think like just literally about the job.
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to like make that, how do I know that it doesn't leak or something, Yeah. Because if something is already hidden or it's buried and you can't get to it, like what a pain. Right.
Yeah.
More to your point though, like the manpower thing and just having the ability to take on more work, or maybe somebody isn't sitting around and has that, has the availability. Like, what do you think about when it comes to other plumbers, right? They're, maybe you don't think of it this way, but I mean, we kind of take on other plumbers' work on the service side all the time. But I guess we're not having to like test and prove things are, that are 25 years old in this house that we're there to fix are working. But and we come across a lot of things that are just wrong in the first place, right?
Yeah.
And are you fully correcting them? Like, aren't we kind of doing this a little bit every time we come into like some kind of major repair or repiping or something like that?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's one of those things that that crosses my mind. With the what's wrong with it. I don't know how big of a liability side it is. You know what I mean? But in the grand scheme of things, it's always one of those things. That's like, why did this guy leave?
Yeah.
What was the reasoning? Is if there's something wrong, or the guy was doing shoddy work, or just trying to bust through it, do you got stuff that's backgraded? When you're all done with it, you're going to find out from the homeowner that, the plumbing doesn't work and we're going to undo the remodel. I mean, something
no,
crazy
that's
like
a great
that.
point. I mean, do you approach it with the, depending on the stage of the project or what the scale of it is or what's actually being done? Do you demand as kind of your condition of taking on the job that we're going to uncover what was done so we can verify ourselves that it's going to work?
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you got reasonable suspicion that there's something goofy, like I said, there's a plumbing wall coming out of the slab, and there's 6 2-inch PVC lines coming up in a row. Right. I don't know. I mean, what the heck are all of those?
Right.
There's been cases on a couple of those where we've just cambered them. Right. Went down, cambered, made some marks on the floor, done the locate.
Yeah.
Okay. That drops in the top on a Y. Oh, this drops into a sand tee on the side. That must be the toilet vent.
Yeah, kind of the same thing you would do on a
Yeah,
40-year-old house that you can't see what's under the floor and you really can't kind of make sense of it. You might, in your case, or not your case, in every case, throw a camera down it and try to locate it.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things you can do to try and, I guess, limit that. So, or at least put your mind at ease that, hey, we're not getting into something. And it may be something that, that the contractor, and I don't, like I say, we're just speculating on what the project is because we don't know. But if we were, let's say it's a custom house, right?
Okay.
Nice, 7,000 square foot custom home. I don't know what whatever.
That was a nice house.
Yeah.
I bet.
You'd probably want to take a little bit more precaution in making sure that you were going to go forward and do the right thing. And so, camera and a line might be a good step. Maybe if the guy left on good terms and it was just purely manpower, call the dude. Be like, hey, I'm coming out here to work with Will. I'm trying to pick up the pieces and put this thing together. What can you tell me about it? Is there anything that you thought like, oh, I need to do this before we do the top out? Or, that vent got deleted and that sink's not even there anymore.
Yeah, not a bad. I didn't even think about that, but as you say, you maybe call the guy. Maybe it's even a scenario where if you call the guy, you say, hey, you want to come work with us on this? What's going on. I mean, that's not crazy either, to be honest with you.
No.
Anything to mitigate the risk. You know what I mean? Like so you said, I can't remember quite the last time you did this, or you couldn't think of a specific job. I didn't. The last new construction job I did was this, believe it or not. So I was involved in a large build. This was 2018. So quite a while ago, 2019. Right. And large slab on grade home, modern construction, nice, really nice, in an area that I was very familiar with and had spent pretty much my whole apprenticeship and many years after working in.
Yep.
A friend of mine says, hey, Ani, we want you to do the radiant heat in the floor, in the house. It's going to be a whole garage house. Everything's 7,500, 8,000 square feet.
Right.
And I'm, what do you say? I'm your Huckleberry. That's what you say.
Yeah.
Since I've heard you say it.
Yeah.
I'm your Huckleberry. That's what I said. I'm sure that I didn't say.
I'm sure you did it just like that. You probably said blueberry though.
I probably said blueberry. A little inside joke. So I took it on and I lay all the tubing, kind of short notice, to be honest with you. And initially the radiant system wasn't going to be the only heating system in this house.
Right.
Or the main heating system, I should say. Did a design, put all the tubing in, concrete's poured, and time goes by. It's not time to put the boiler in yet, but then everything's framed. This is a big house, kind of being self-done and by a very skilled, capable person. And then I get the call, can you take over? My plumber's not calling me back. This is early COVID.
Yeah.
And this plumber decided, it's funny because he was doing this on the side. It wasn't his business. Yeah. And this plumber who's been around, I kind of know the guy, been around a long time, perfectly capable of doing a job like this, decided that during COVID, when everything got crazy busy, that he was too busy to take on this big job that he had started, 6 months prior. I mean, it had been a while since he had been there.
Right.
And no reason though, because the guy you're working for pays really well, never really even bothered asking what was going to cost. It was just going to cost what it cost, right?
Right.
Pays you right away. Give him a bill, that kind of thing. He'll pay you that day. He asked if I'll do it, and I hemmed and hawed. And I told him the reasons why, because from that, the very first thing I was going to have to do was all the top out on this slab on grade house, tons of plumbing, tons of it.
Yeah.
Tons of gas, plumbing, dryer vents, bath fans, stuff like that. And, I got to test all this and prove to the inspector that it's good. And there's a half a mile pipe under the floor. You know what I mean? And not only is there just pipe everywhere, now there's freaking water lines, and like that's the stuff. That's the stuff that really gives you like you start to have like an aneurysm. Like, oh my god, look at all this PEX coming up in the plumbing walls, and like, what is it, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Yeah.
like I
Oh
don't
yeah,
even know
I
what's
do.
going on,
I
and it was
do.
all just white Aquapex. So it probably was labeled at one time, but you can't see it and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, somebody wrote on it with a Sharpie and
Yeah,
eight
now
months
it's covered
eight
in
months of
concrete or
sunshine.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I took it on, and I called the inspector who was new to that area. I hadn't met before, and I just tried to explain to him, like, look, I don't really know why I'm calling you. Probably just out of nerves. I kind of remember the conversation,
Yeah.
something like to that effect. And that's how I started. And I said,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take on this job. Do you know the project? And they knew the project right away. It was a gal, and I just said, I'm gonna take this on. I'm fully qualified. I'm a master plumber in business, everything like that. But what if something's wrong? What if what do we do? And they're like, well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how reassured I was after that conversation, but at least it felt like I started at a point where I'm like, at least everybody was on the same page as I was. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really want to do this, but it's got to be
Yeah.
done. Somebody's going to do it.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I took it on. It worked out fine. It took a lot longer than it would have if it were my own job. There's no doubt. Everybody does things a little different, even though it's all right.
Right.
Like in this case, it was all right. I mean, the groundwork was inspected. I mean, that doesn't really say a lot either. You can do things wrong, and some inspectors will never even see it or know
Yeah.
that you
Right.
did it wrong. But anyway, it was fine. It worked out in the end. But my biggest thought was like inspection. Like, how am I going to air test this thing and prove that it doesn't leak? It's already covered in concrete. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't have I don't really, to answer Will's question, have you ever taken jobs from other plumbers? Yes, we've kind of both answered that. We get nervous about it. It's not the first thing we want to do. That's what he's up against in this question. He's finding out other plumbers are like, I don't want something that somebody else is taking on.
Yeah.
I think you got to probably start that conversation with knowing that, because you already know people don't want to take it. Just say, hey, look, depending on the scope of the project, like you've already brought up, we don't even know what it is necessarily, but you probably have to figure out, as it pertains to your job, how do you start that conversation with some kind of clause that says, hey, look, if there's more time involved than you think, we've talked with the owner, we've got approval just to pay for the time. Like, whatever it is, we're going to have to make it right in the end. And we'd rather do it before things have to be, deconstructed. That's kind of what it comes down to be honest with you. Right. I mean, do you agree with that?
I do. And I think that's an easy way of coming about it, and just, and being open to try and invite somebody to come in to pick up the pieces, is to do that, is to say, hey, listen, we understand that, there's going to be some hesitation, maybe, here's what we've got. One of the things that, since we've been talking about this, that would be a very quick turnoff for me would be to tell the plumber, hey, yeah, we'll take care of this. And we already have all the fixtures.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Going in and telling them like, we've already decided and planned for not paying you for certain things or something.
Right. Or we've already got all the material handled. We've got the boiler, and we've got the water heater, and we got this, and we've got all this stuff already taken care of. It's all on the site. And where in some people's mind, that may seem like, oh, you've done the plumber a favor, or you've done the heating guy a favor. Well, yes, you have, in the sense that the logistics of figuring out material has already been handled. Yeah. However, a portion of that fixture being sold, there's some profit that going to come in that. And it's that profit is how we're going to pay for any warranty work. Right. And so there's that level of that I look at, when somebody's like, oh, we got our own fixtures, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not really that interested. It just, if they came back to me and said, okay, you know what, here's the deal. We have the fixtures already picked out. They're already paid for because we paid the other guy for them, blah, 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 whatever. What we're willing to do is we're willing to, add 20% to the invoice. of what these fixtures were that, you can charge, because that's going to cover your little miscellaneous incidental items. Maybe it covers your warranty, things like that. In some cases you have to be able to sweeten the pot a little bit, where somebody will be, okay, yeah, you know what, this is going to be more in line with a job that I started and I'm going to be profitable on, because ultimately, why are you doing it if you're not going to be profitable?
Yeah, not a bad idea. I didn't think about that. It brings up a thought. I've been learning over the last year or two, couple of years when I've been working with Build Show, Build
Yeah.
Network. A lot of builders, Andy, in new construction currently
Yeah.
are providing the fixtures
Yeah. I don't
for
doubt
plumbers nationwide and for these customs and stuff like that.
it. Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't, yeah, that's a whole other subject.
Yeah. Well,
I could, I would have to think about that a little bit more, but
yeah.
on how I really feel about it, but my knee jerk reactions, I don't like it.
Yeah. I wouldn't be interested.
I think that that's way more common though than you think. And I think in
yeah.
a community that's just going to be like, well, we'll just have somebody else do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, could be.
I think it is something that we would have to like figure out, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah. I think, you're right. I think it is a different discussion, but I think if you knew that going into the job, then you could account for it in a different fashion. And basically
Great
put
point.
a disclaimer that, hey, fixtures are yours. That's yours. Not
yeah. Yeah. We're just going to charge you more. Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, if you're working with a builder and they're buying like professional, quality stuff, and that's what I think I'm talking about, just based off of my knowledge of talking to these builders and stuff. Like, they're not putting anything but nice stuff in.
It wasn't
the top end.
They went down to Ace Hardware and bought the
right.
Yeah,
they're talking about Kohler and Delta and stuff like that.
Yeah,
higher end stuff.
Wasn't Glacier Bay or whatever the house brand.
And then last question.
Okay.
You kind of brushed on it earlier, but as it relates to Will's question, he says, "Have you ever walked from a job?"
Yep.
Like, have you ever started a job and said, we're not going to finish this?
Yep, I have. A couple. The first one I remember, and this was probably the first job that I walked from in my own business. We were doing like a whole house remodel, like peel it down to the subfloor, new exterior walls, like a little bungalow. That's what it was. It was in the guy's backyard, kind of like it might have been just a 1-bedroom, 1-bath kitchen type scenario. Second, like a guest house. And they peeled this thing down. I went over and looked at it. It was one of those deals where I'd worked with this guy I'd worked with him for a couple of years, off and on like a super nice outdoor kitchen project and bathroom in his shop, just littler projects. But yeah. And he calls me and he says, "Hey, I got this other job for you. I need you to come by and look at it." I'm like, "All right." So I go and look at this project. And this was early on before I guess I was versed in saying no.
Okay.
Or making sure that I'm communicating my schedule with the customer.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'll do this, but I can't do it until February.
Right.
And anyway, so we go look at this job before they had done the demo, and he's got a set of plans and his builder was there. And, I'm talking with him and I'm like, all right, yeah, this is easy enough. I want to be able to do the plumbing when the subfloor is off though. Because it had super, super tight crawl space. And I just said, we're not doing this. I'm not climbing underneath this thing and plumbing it from the bottom because you guys are in a hurry. And I just specifically remember that conversation.
Sure.
And the builder was kind of put off by it, and he's like, well, that's just the way it is. And I was like, well, it's not the way it is. We're talking about it right now. So, whatever. And so I get a call from, whatever, we go through this and the homeowner and I pick out some fixtures, some showers so we can get fiberglass, on site pretty quick. And, I get a call from him like a week later um, saying, or 2 weeks, probably 2 weeks later, saying, "Hey, we're framed up, we're ready for you." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, no, we started demo the day that you left. The day that you came out here. We got demo done. It's tiny house, so we just scraped the thing off, and it's all framed up, ready for you to go." And I was like, "Okay, well, I mean, we had not talked about scheduling. I can't do it today."
Yeah.
I can't really do it this week. And at that time, I think I was still just a one-man shop.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let me see what's going on. And we had picked out fiberglass, but we hadn't put it in the house yet.
Yeah.
Because nobody had even said anything about framing. I mean, I was expecting to be able to come in and do underground or the rough in stuff, at least get stuff stubbed up through the floor, so they could put the new sheeting on. And I stopped by there just on a whim, rolled in there, and here's the carpenter Mike is there, and he's like, "So you ready to get started? Like, what's going on?" I'm like, "Mike, no, I'm like 2 weeks out." "Oh no, we're gonna be done. We're gonna be painting in 2 weeks." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever, dude, but it ain't gonna be plumbed."
Yeah.
And he's like,
Not by
"Well,
me.
whatever." So I was pissed, so I left, and I hadn't talked to the homeowner yet, and so I left, whatever, went continuing on with my day, kind of stewing over it, like, these pricks, here we go. This was a job that we were easy to communicate. And all of a sudden the builder decides he's got this, breakneck pace that he's going to, build this house in a month. And, I get a call from the homeowner, and the homeowner says, "Well, Mike says you're not going to do this job." I said, "Well, I didn't say I was not going to do the job, but I'm not doing it on your schedule." Right? Like, I don't know. Nobody told, we didn't ever discuss, this time frame, this crazy time frame when we did the walkthrough, and I said, I don't have room in my schedule I can't just blow up my schedule because you guys can't communicate what your intention is.
Right.
And he flew off the handle, called me a couple of bad dirty names, and then hung up on me. And I'm like, okay. So I called the supply house, who I'd called earlier to deliver fixtures, and said,
"Don't deliver.
Cancel the fixtures, kill the order.
Yeah.
Return them to stock." And they were like, "Oh, everything all right?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not doing the job anymore." And that was it. And so, like, 3 days later, the homeowner calls me and he goes, "So when are you going to be here?" And I was like, "Screw you, dude. I am not coming. We're done. You can lose my phone number. I'm not interested." And, and then he badmouthed me for 6 months, I heard, around town or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, whatever.
It's going to happen, I guess.
Yeah, it happens. Whatever.
Well, in that case,
I'm glad that I didn't do it.
At least you didn't start the job beyond like that time you spent. Can't recoup that time either. That sucks.
Yeah.
I've come close to starting jobs but not starting them. Kind of same scenario or similar. I've never started one, didn't finish it.
Right.
In any capacity. I've never got, like, even as far as like selecting fixtures, but I've gotten awarded the job, let's say, by the builder,
Yeah.
And then somehow, one way or another, been told I'm not doing the job anymore. Time had passed. Hey, what's going on with this job? Oh, we had somebody else do it. That kind of thing.
Right.
It's happened to me 2 times. I've changed the way I do things since then. I think in reaction to that, and hopefully to keep that from ever happening again.
Yep.
And these days, that's not likely to happen because I mostly just don't take on that kind of work.
Yeah.
I'm mostly just working direct for homeowners, small 1-2 day projects. Rarely am I even like remodeling something. Does that make sense?
Right.
Not really what I'd like to do, completely honest with you.
No.
We've talked so much about what I've done lately, like the heat pumps and different tankless jobs and different installs of new equipment that's coming on the market. We've got another project coming up. It's another, with that heat pump from our favorite manufacturer, like, stuff like that is where I want to worry about what I'm doing with 3 days at a time or 2 days. I don't want to worry about rough-ins and then top outs or finish it. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's just me. It's not what I want to do.
Nope, I hear you.
Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. We did. It's an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Admittedly, it's not something that you and I have spent a lot of time thinking about, to be honest with you, before today.
I think it's one of those things that you don't think about until you get asked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then all the questions fly.
I bet you there's somebody listening that has been through this more than once. I'd love to hear from you. Both of us, Andy and I, would love to hear from you. Please write in. We try to make it as easy as possible. You can leave us a message right in the podcast app. There's a link right there in the show description. You can email us over at maketradesgreatagain@gmail.com. You can DM us on Instagram. You probably know who that is, but Andy's at Mick_Plum, at Mick_Plum, and I'm at Mechanical Hub. Yeah, dude. That's a good one.
Yeah.
We're going to have to call it, though. We're getting long again.
Oh, that's all right. It's all right.
I say long. It's basically turned into our average, right?
It's our average. We're right on cue. Right on par.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right. You too.